So, Ross, the big question is, will this government support that we've been reporting on the last 24 hours, will it be enough to stop most businesses, we hope all of them, from going broke?
Yeah, well, that's the great hope, isn't it, really, that businesses can remain open, that employees can remain engaged, and that this is enough money to keep them going. Anything up to $10,000 is obviously, enough for a lot of businesses to keep their doors open. You really hope in many ways this is not the last straw. Now, today, because consumer confidence numbers came out from Westpac, we did manage to grab the chief economist at Westpac, Bill Evans. We asked him specifically about this, just about, the current package that's been offered by both the New South Wales state government and the federal government, and also compare it with the past with JobKeeper last year. Here's just a little of what he said about the comparison of the two.
Last month, New South Wales confidence was at a 20-year high. And so the economy came into this slowdown at a very strong momentum.
So from that point of view, with confidence levels being higher, you would imagine, therefore, that maybe, just maybe, there is perhaps better momentum, that maybe companies had more money in the pocket, maybe there's enough to keep them going. Again, we asked him about this point, about comparing those sort of, if you like, JobKeeper programs last year with what's on the table today. Again, here's what he said.
Look, it's a bit more complicated than JobKeeper because you don't get the money directly from the employer. But I think it's a timely response, and I expect that governments will be prepared to do even more if they feel this isn't doing the job.
Away from lockdown, some of the highest flying shares today had their wings clipped a little.
Oh, well, they sure have. So these are the buy now, pay later companies. So these are companies like Afterpay, which going back 2 years ago was the best performing stock on Australia's stock market. Companies like Zip, which has been, again, a phenomenal performer. Hum's another one as well. But all of them went down. So just having a quick look out there, Zip shares today down by 10%, Afterpay down by 9.6%. And the reason for that is because there are challenges now coming. Today, you've seen a situation where PayPal has announced its variation of what Afterpay and Zip do. In other words, allow you to effectively buy products now, buy goods now, but pay for them incrementally over a period of time. And then also there's suggestions that Google might be moving into this area as well. One of the big points for the companies like Apple and Google and Facebook is that they want to get into payments in a big way, not just here in Australia, but right around the world. And so this, in many ways, is seen to be an easy way, and that's the reason why those shares, those high-flying shares here in Australia, were just off the boil a bit today.
And Ross, New Zealand's dollar, this is an interesting story. The New Zealand dollar has risen after it became one of the first Western nations to stop printing money.
Yeah, so last week we heard from Australia's Reserve Bank that they were going to continue to print money, that they would actually do so after the current program ended in September. They'd taper it off just a little bit. They did not. Versus the Aussie dollar. So the Aussie dollar has fallen by about 0.8% today. The New Zealand dollar has strengthened, getting closer to parity with the Australian dollar. And the reason for this is because New Zealand says it no longer needs to print that money to buy back government bonds to put more cash into its economy. And indeed, now there are forecasts suggesting that New Zealand could even see its first interest rate rises as early as before Christmas this year. Now, that's still a big call. It might end up being next year sometime, but certainly it would seem on the curve of economic sort of development that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand seems to be ahead of the curve as compared with Australia, and is more in line with where the US and maybe the UK are as compared with Australia, which is prepared to sit back and wait and keep printing this money.